We're back.
We're back.
We're back. I don't need, this is like segment 13 or whatever. It's just so great to be renewed. This is even better. I get to actually introduce, since Nicole is on leave,
Yes,
or she's got a better agent than I do.
Right,
she's
also
not
known
here.
as like upstairs, actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
true. I'm Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services and Victim Advocacy for Crime Stoppers. We are honored, we are special, we are endowed to have Rania Mankarious, our CEO of Crime Stoppers. So we're bringing in the big guns.
I was waiting to see if it was going to be renewed, and then I was going to, and that's why. I mean, I was strategic about it, Andy. There's strategery. Anyway.
Strategies arise.
I'm so happy to be here. What are we talking about?
This is great. We're going to talk about what we did at Crime Stoppers this legislative session. And
yes.
I've been doing legislative work since 1993. This is one of the best sessions that I've had. And of course, on behalf of Crime Stoppers, I think this was certainly paramount to what we would consider success, any bills that get passed.
Absolutely.
So what I'm gonna, we're gonna go back and forth. We're gonna talk about what it takes. How does it get to be a thought? How do you go from point A to point B? The bill that you primarily worked on in this session, which was what?
House Bill 4372. I mean, and I'll jump into what we did, but to even talk about how legislation happens, it is a huge effort that takes the community. As Andy coined the term in my mind, there's usually a catalyst family, a victim family out there that something's happened to, that really raises the flag, that makes you realize the law needs to change in this area. You work with the media, you work with the community, you work with victim families, and then you find legislative men, women in the House and the Senate who can buy in, believe in this process and in the issue, and use their power to help you change something. We've identified, House Bill 4372, this need for camp safety and this overhaul. But through the years, Crime Stoppers, year after year, session after session has identified things, but we haven't had the ability to throw everything in until we brought you on. So we're so thrilled, Andy. You came on, obviously, to represent victims, but through that, you've brought decades of legislative history and know-how, and we feel very honored to have you with us.
My position has always been, anybody can yell and scream about injustice. It'll get you maybe a few minutes of airtime.
Right.
I would much prefer to find a solution and or a remedy, and one way of doing that is through the legislative process. There's a glitch in the system. Okay, so we found a glitch. Let's fix it. Let's do something about it. And that's what happened in this particular bill.
We were shocked. About 5 or 6 years ago, we were approached by a family whose son had been victimized at a very prominent Texas camp. And when we started to hear about what happened and the length of victimization, it was unbelievable to me that laws weren't already in place for reporting or how the camp was to respond, how DISH was to oversee it. And we went to Representative Murphy.
And you probably assumed that this was like anyone else. What?
We were shocked. We actually at first thought the family just misunderstood. And we said, you're mistaken. There's absolutely no way. Camps are a thriving industry, seeing hundreds of thousands of kids every summer. Parents drop them off with full assurance that their kids are fine. And for the most part, that's true. But as we dove into it, we realized that camps are somewhat of uncharted territory. And there's this glaring lack of oversight when it comes to camps and the protection of children. So Representative Murphy, whom we really appreciate, love, respect, adore, joined this journey and realized legislation has to take place. And what we were specifically looking to do was, where a child has had an incident at a camp in the state of Texas, we were creating a way for them to report that incident of sexual assault or abuse, and then requiring that the camp keep record of that, so that if parents want to investigate or look into the camps that they're sending their kids to, there's some type of database, because up until now there's been nothing.
So if I'm a parent and I'm looking to send my child to a camp, and I'm perusing through camps, doing my research, prior to this bill being enacted, there was no way for me to tell any violations of any criminal offenses.
Zero.
No,
zero, and no requirements at all. Camps are private institutions, so they operate under different structures. And we realize that when you are saying, send your kids to us, where they will sleep, where they will take showers, where they will go hunting, where they will go explore the wilderness, where they will go fishing and rafting and explore ropes courses, and leave your kids to us. We'll take care of them. That's wonderful, and we want that experience for kids, but there has to be a higher standard of care and protection when it comes to watching over those children, and it just wasn't there. So this was the first door, and we know there's going to be a lot more doors to be opened in the future. The greatest things, at the beginning, the camp lobbyists were like, wait. But after we discussed, and Representative Murphy, of course, on the House side, and Senator Wittmeyer on the Senate side, at the end, the camp lobbyists were all for this legislation because they realized it was the right thing to do, and camps are a thriving industry. It was only proper that they were taking every course necessary to protect our kids.
So when you get a bill filed, take over what happens then? Okay, the bill's filed. Okay, that's great. That's like point A.
Yes.
Now what happens?
Well, it's long and it's tedious, but you've got to start on the House or you've got to start on the Senate. You've got to find your champion and the person who's going to write that bill and sponsor it. You find the committee it's going to go through, you testify in front of that committee, and you do everything you need to do to get it voted out of that committee. And then you repeat the process on the other side. So we started on the House side with our legislation 4372. After it passed, we went to Senator Wittmeyer and asked him to carry it through the Senate, where we repeat the cycle. And then we hope that it goes through committee and it goes through to the governor's desk and it actually gets signed. And listen, in the past we've gone through this long journey, gotten right to the governor's desk, and
there's no guarantees.
There's no
And I've always said this,
guarantees.
until it's signed on a dotted line and that date is over, you really don't know. You can't really predict.
Not at all. Not at all. And you talk to the governor's office along the way, you do everything you need to do. You work with the media, you work with the community, you make sure people understand why this legislation is so important. But at any moment, anything can change, which is why it takes so much work to follow these legislative changes from inception to completion.
You go from like a committee hearing to getting it out of committee,
Yes.
to getting it out of that chamber,
Yes.
to going to and doing the exact same thing
On the opposing side,
in
on the other
the
side.
next chamber,
Mhm.
and then you wait, you hope it comes up for a vote because you got deadlines,
Oh, yeah.
time frames.
That you're managing
This is right.
calendars and all the other bills that
Yeah.
need to be pushed through. It's exhausting, overwhelming, but isn't it the greatest feeling on earth?
It is the most exhilarating thing in the world when you've basically adopted and when you've come up with something
Yeah.
from beginning and you see it to the end. There's no greater feeling in the world.
There's no great, and to see the families that we're working with, certainly this legislation is so important, but when you're kind of holding the hand of a family throughout it, and you see their face when it gets signed and passed, it's worth all the effort,
There was a lot of roller coaster rides with this one.
Oh my gosh,
Yes,
there
you-
were a lot
You
with
and I
this
both
one.
know that. It was
There were.
up and down, up and down, and up and down.
And at the end of the day, again, we believe camps are a wonderful place to send your kids. There's so much camps have to offer, but we just wanted to make sure that there were no loopholes and kids were always safe.
There's really no downside to this. No,
None.
it's everybody benefits from this.
Everybody benefits, and Texas started it, and now we're getting calls from the state of Connecticut, where
And
we've
that's how
also
it works.
submitted testimony, and they're looking at changing the laws in the state of Connecticut right now. There's absolutely no
You know,
requirement.
Connecticut followed on a bill that I got passed in 2013, and
Oh,
it
you're
was
kidding.
reducing public access to crime scene photos.
Oh.
And that was a result of the Newtown school shooting, where
Yes.
they were fearful that unscrupulous media was trying to get pictures and crime scene photos. We became the second state, and then Connecticut actually followed up with us as well.
We're hoping Connecticut
So-
follows here, because right now in the state of Connecticut, there's absolutely no requirement that camp counselors undergo any type of background checks at all. So you can have anybody watching your children, and we're gonna work to change that.
That's incredible. You know, one of the bills that I primarily worked on, and again, it was occasionally I get a brain, something lights up.
Yeah.
And this was a case that Crime Stoppers worked on quite extensively, and this is still an unsolved shooting of a 4-year-old who was named Sir Romeo that happened in May of 2018. Randomly shot, spent months and months in a hospital, trying to put himself back together. And when they were ready to discharge him, he had to go back to the same place that he was shot at, and the family was leery and skittish for obvious reasons. And they asked me, can anything happen? And I said, the Crime Victim Compensation Fund has relocation expenses for domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. let me see what I can do. And I called the director of the CVC office and I said, hey, let me run this by you. And he said, well, no one's done this. And I said, well, good. I like to do things. So there's no reason we can't set a precedent. So I approached Senator Boris Miles and State Representative Garnett Coleman. We drafted a bill, and Texas became the first state in the country to pass a statute that now allows families whose children were a victim of attempted murder to apply for relocation expenses.
It's unbelievable, Andy, because before this happened, it never even occurred to me that that was not just an issue, but that wasn't an option.
No.
And to even hear human trafficking had that option, but not a child who had suffered a potential.
And had to go back to the
trauma.
same place he was shot at. You know, I don't get a chance to make happy phone calls, but when I called his grandmother, you could literally see the smile through my phone. I told her, I said, Sir Romeo will have a legacy that will last an eternity. I told you we were going to take a negative and we were going to turn it into a positive, and we did it.
It's unbelievable, and it makes us so proud.
No, another one we did was an adult Amber Alert, and again, another catalyst for a change. You had an 18-year-old that was abducted and murdered. There were witnesses, and when they called local police to try to help find them, they were told that they didn't qualify for an Amber Alert because she was over the age.
Andy, when you think of people watching this or all the different crime issues that are taking place, is there ever a time when someone's going to call you and you're going to say, I'm sorry, it's just, you just know there's no way to get this passed? Or are you always going to try?
My position is always make them tell you no.
Make them tell you.
There's no harm. You know, there was one bill we put up there years ago, and I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, but I thought, let's discuss it. There's one state that actually allows a victim and or a representative to sit at the council table during trial. So in other words, the jury sees the defendant, right?
Yes.
And in this particular, they can actually see the victim or a representative of the family. And I put it out there. I knew it wasn't going to. But you know what? Let's talk about it. Why not?
There's value in the conversation.
There is.
And eventually, you never know what doors you're going to open or walls you're going to knock down. Which is why we love doing what we do. We certainly never stop. Andy certainly never stops. And so I think with you sort of pushing the engine forward, there's a lot more that's going to happen legislatively with Crime Stoppers.
I agree, and it's certainly my honor to be able to do what I do, and I love doing what I'm doing. And the fact that we have such a great partnership, and you're doing what you're doing, what a great team.
We love it, and
awesome.
we made you
and
smile.
We get results. Yeah. Yes, I get a chance to smile. That doesn't happen too often.
We feel blessed.
So I will smile again next session, 2021.
We're starting already. We're starting already our work for next session.
Good.
So we'll keep everybody up to date.
So
we thank
again,
you so much.
For people that want to go out and give us, give us some ideas, give us some suggestions. We don't claim to have a carte blanche on everything.
Yes.
So if you have something you think we want to take a look at, let me know.
Yep. Thank you, Andy.
Hey, thank you guys.